Hey everyone, welcome to the lineup.
Yeah, welcome back to episode 2 here. We're super excited. Kind of an unplanned episode we have here. We're really excited to bring on four graduating seniors to talk a little bit about their experience with their seasons getting cut short and a little bit about the virus and how they're dealing with it.
Yeah, so we're gonna have Chris Festa come on first. He's a Johns Hopkins baseball player. Nikki Silvestri come on second. She's a University of Maryland lacrosse player, and then two Washington College outfielders, Chris Communis and Joe Otto. They're gonna give their experiences. So first we have Chris Festa. Hey Chris, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Welcome to the second episode here of the lineup.
All right, glad to
Yeah,
be
we're
here.
really excited to have you on. We're going to talk a little bit about your experience at Johns Hopkins, kind of how this season unraveled, your career up to this point, and a little bit about what you expected from this season, what happened, and kind of your story. So,
Sure.
how's your playing career? A little bit about that first, and then we'll move forward.
Yeah. So I guess I got a few opportunities my freshman and sophomore year, just starting from the beginning, due to a mix of injuries and not being able to get myself in the proper mindset to succeed. But finally figured some things out my junior year. Had a really good season, and then I was off to a great start my senior year, and I was supposed to be the one of the captains on the team.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously really unfortunate what happened. I remember you telling me that you guys were going to Florida that week, and you want to tell me a little bit about that going there, kind of what was going through your mind on the plane and everything.
At that point, it still wasn't, as serious as, well, we didn't think it was as serious as it actually was. So we were just thinking, all right, as soon as this plane takes us off, all of our worries will be gone. And then after we touched down and played the first game, we started realizing like things started just tumbling. Like I remember in the middle of our first and only game there, the NCAA canceled March Madness, and then we kind of knew that was it for us.
So talk a little bit about what your initial reaction was when you heard the news and how that maybe differed from when you had time to let it sink in a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I was shocked. Yeah, our coach brought us after our game and to break the news, and I kind of teared up a little bit, but still hasn't really hit me yet. Every day there's a new aspect of life that you're like, wow, this is kind of crazy. What am I supposed to do without baseball? Like, for example, I don't even know what kind of workouts to do anymore because I was giving workouts to me for 8 years of my life.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely tough. I know that I'd probably have the same problem too. Like being a sophomore, I'm fortunate. Derek's fortunate to have a couple more years. I know that they're also giving people back a year of eligibility, but
Yep.
I know that for most people that's really not going to happen because many people want to move on with their life, graduate, get a
Mhm.
job, and
Yeah.
whatnot. So it's really unfortunate. And we always talk about like self identity with sports, and I know with myself when people ask me, "Oh, like what's up? Who are you? What's going on?" I'll always
Mhm.
say like, "Oh, I'm Ben Ruvo. I'm a baseball player." And I know that
Mhm.
when you leave that sport, like I know that when I'm probably a senior or when I graduate, I'd still feel like inclined to say, "Oh yeah, I'm a baseball player." But then losing that image, you kind of I don't know. I'd feel like I might lose a sense of like my self identity. And a lot of athletes, when they like leave their sport, will sometimes go through like a self identity, self worth crisis where they're like, okay, what am I going to do now? Like, I understand
Mhm.
that I got to move on, but for a lot of people, that's hard to move on. So, yeah, like I
Yeah.
totally understand that.
Yeah. 100%.
So like, what are your plans after college now that baseball?
I have no idea. I mean, I'm still looking for a job, but now I'm keeping grad school in mind. I might use the red shirt. I'm keeping all options open. Applying to different jobs, talking to different people, applying to a bunch of different grad schools. Going to start reaching out to some coaches soon, and just see where the chips falls. Um, See what my options are. Make a decision from there. But baseball keeps. There's a little voice in the back of my head that keeps saying, "Go play again."
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, when you're in your senior year, you kind of prepare for what that last game would be like, stepping on the
Yeah.
field and how you envision that ending. How would you say that hit you that it was cut short and you didn't really have that ideal ending to your career? Did you have any regrets? Do you have anything that you wish you could have changed?
Uh, no regrets, honestly. My first 2 years didn't go exactly as planned, and even my 4 years in high school didn't really go exactly as planned. But after I figured things out, before my junior year, I really felt like I gave it my all. I played the game with energy, with a smile on my face. So at least I can leave the game knowing that, I gave it my all that last 1.5 years.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, like I know you said that you're planning on you're thinking about going to grad school after this to kind of get that red shirt year in.
Mm-hmm.
I know that probably a week and a half ago that probably didn't even cross your mind. So,
No.
I mean, I can't imagine the sudden change of plans this whole thing brought to your head or gave you after this all happened.
And it's been stressful. I mean, grad school applications are due this week, and as of last week, I wasn't even thinking about it. So now I'm kind of scrambling.
Yeah,
I mean,
I got one final question here from me. What advice would you say you would give, with the experience that you've gone through about your season getting cut short? What advice would you give to seniors coming up in the future about, treating every game like it's your last, or playing hard every game because you never know when it's going to end?
It is cliche, but all I could say is, have fun. I remember, so this is our last game before our season got cut short. I'm in the on deck circle, standing next to my coach, and he gets a alert on his Apple Watch and just drops a pretty hard F-bomb. And I said, what? He said, don't worry about it. Go hit the ball as hard as you can. So I kind of knew right there. So I just took that last at bat as nothing. It doesn't really matter anymore. So I'm just gonna have some fun with it. I think I struck out or grounded out to the pitcher or something, but you know what? I did it with a smile on my face because I knew that was pretty much it right there. So, just go out there, do what you can control, do it with a smile. Whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, and good luck finding your grad school if you decide to do that or go elsewhere. Thank you. Yeah, thanks again for joining us. That was great.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Chris.
All right, that was Chris Festa. He's awesome. He's one of my good friends. We're really happy to have him on. And now we're going to transition into another athlete. She's a women's lacrosse player from the University of Maryland, Nikki Silvestri. Hey, Nikki, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Welcome to episode 2 of the show here on the lineup.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh yeah, no problem. It's really an honor to have you on here. I'm really good friends with your brother, as you know, so it's really exciting to meet another one in the family.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a little bit about your playing career up until this point. You can start from childhood, high school, however you want to do it, and kind of just get into your college career and where you are now currently. So.
Right. I've been playing lacrosse since I was in probably second grade, and I just fell in love with it right away. So I played all my life up until I made varsity at a young age, and then I was fortunate to be able to continue my career at University of Maryland, and I am so thankful for that because I've had so many opportunities and I've met so many great people there. And it's been a journey that I've really enjoyed. There's been lots of ups and downs. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's a sport that I truly love. So I'm really thankful for all the opportunities it gave me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So going forward a little bit with this recent pandemic that's been going on, talk a little bit about what your initial reaction was when you heard the news and maybe how that differed a little bit from when it settled in a little and you had some time to think it through.
I mean, this is so crazy. Obviously, none of us could ever imagine that this is where we would be today. We originally heard the news. Well, one league in our one of the teams that we were supposed to play, the Patriot League had canceled the day before. Then the Ivy League canceled, and then once we saw those leagues canceling, the Big Ten was still going, and we were practicing because at that point we still had games Saturday, and it got to Thursday, and we were at practice, and by the end of practice, it was done. We heard the news. My coach heard as a definite, and it was just weird, She kept the seniors back, and we all just hugged it out because that was the last time we were all going to be on that field together, which is such a weird feeling because we've been with each other for 4 years, and then just the end of it, it was so weird to take in. At first, I didn't even have any emotion because I was just okay, it's done. and then days later it like hits you. It's so weird because that was the last time. Like the game before that was the last game that we would play together, which is just a weird feeling.
Yeah, that's crazy because I always said when I told my story about where I was I was playing. I was in Florida. We heard the news when we were there, but we finished out our trip. So for the seniors, at least, I'm sure Chris and Joe will talk about this later. They had some sort of closure feeling where they knew it was kind of it, and they could bring it, kind of sink it in and let it sink in. But for you guys didn't even know your last game was going to be the week before, whenever you played last. Like that's a kind of a tough feeling to deal with, especially in the moment.
Yeah, so weird. I think a lot of girls on my team, that was like one of the biggest problems, like not having that closure. Normally we're fortunate to be able to make it like all the way to the end, and like when we get there, we know like, okay, like when we're in playoff time, like, okay, this could be our last game, but like, like we know that we still have games ahead, but like our last game on Saturday against Hofstra, not knowing, like people I think would have played differently and would have done things differently if they knew that that was their last game. And not having that closure, not being able to be like, okay, this is the last time I'm stepping on the field, like I'm going to give it all I have, is like, it's so hard to process. Like it's a weird mental thing because it's like, this is a sport I've been playing my whole life, and I got one last practice. And that practice that we had before we found out was like the most fun practice. So it was fun to just like enjoy. We just like competed against each other. We had some fights on who was winning, who wasn't winning, but like we had fun that practice. But practice is so different from a game. Like there's nothing that compares to being and playing in a game. So not having that closure, I know, is definitely hard for some girls.
Yeah, so you kind of led into my next question there about how could a situation like this kind of affect someone's mental well-being or mental health? Have you been coping with it in a certain way, or what advice would you have to some other seniors out there?
I've been very open with my story. So I suffer from depression and anxiety, and let me tell you, something like this, when it's out of your control and like you didn't even see it coming, like that's very hard for me. And I know there's a lot of people out there who suffer from the same thing. So not being able to control this, I know, is like a really hard thing. And it does take a toll. Like you have to process so many different things at one time. Like you have to process the end of school. You have to process online classes. You have to process not being with your teammates, living with your roommates. You have to process not having a real graduation. You have to process like the end of your lacrosse career, like the end of playing with these people that you've been with for 4 years. Like there's so much to process. But like my advice would be, I'm someone who likes to put things off and then like it all explodes at once, which obviously is never a good thing. So my advice is to like feel it, like actually allow yourself to think about it, to show emotion, to go through it and talk to people, like lean on your teammates because they're all going through the same thing. Like they're all having this like unknown and like all this stuff, and it's okay to like break down and not be okay, and it's okay to like to feel this stuff. I feel like that's the biggest thing right now. I mean, that's for me in all of this. I'm big on mental health, like feeling it, just going through it and allowing yourself to be vulnerable and have people like be there for you and open up to those people, I think is really important.
Yeah, exactly. We always talk about vulnerability in the mental health field. Right. A big thing is, being vulnerable, being able to talk about it, especially, now more than ever with this going on. It's such a sudden transition and such a shock for so many people that you really need to be able to lean on your teammates and be vulnerable and be able to talk about it and allow yourself to feel what you're feeling because it's all valid right now.
Right. And there's so many people obviously like going through the same thing. So like you're not alone and having the struggle. And I think also a big thing is like right now, well, do we get an extra year? Are we able to come back? Now people are like having anxiety over that because they're like, well, I was ready to be done. And now do I come back? Like, do I do this extra year? I think people are just like overthinking it. Like, if you want that extra year, take it. Like if you don't like how you ended it, if you don't like how your last game went, if you weren't ready to be done, take it. If you were ready to step away from the sport, then step away. Like, no one's judging. It's not like, oh, you don't come back, like you didn't love your sport or you weren't really in it. Like, that has nothing to do with it. Like, college sports is something for you to be able to get into college and get a degree and make your dreams happen. Like, no one's going in being like, I'm going to be a pro lacrosse athlete. Like, you're going in for a different job. You're just using your sport to get there. So, like, at the end of the day, you do whatever is right for you, you know?
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, one final question that I'm going to ask everyone on the show today is, with you going through an experience like this of the season getting cut short, what advice would you give to seniors in the future about, never knowing when the end of your career is going to be, or never knowing when your last game would be? What, if you could talk a little bit about that.
I would have to say that, like, my coach used to say, like, if you're gonna practice hard and you're gonna go all out in practice and you're going to give it your all in practice, that's what you're gonna do in a game. So, like, anytime you have a chance to step on the field, work your hardest. Like, outwork your teammates, because if you're outworking your teammates, then you're pushing them to be harder, like, to be better, to be faster, to be fitter, to be all that. I think just working your hardest, and even if things aren't working out, like, if you gave it all you got, then you can't look back and be like, oh, I regret that. Like, I should have done this or I should have done that. Like, if you gave it everything you got, every chance you stepped on the field, there's nothing you can look back on and regret. And I think also for freshmen, especially coming in, I think just having confidence in everything you do in life, like on the lacrosse field, in the classroom, in your friendships, in your relationships, like, confidence is the biggest thing I think I've struggled with. And I think if I had the confidence I have now, knowing that what I know, if I came in with confidence, knowing that I'm good, knowing that I deserve to be here and I was chosen to be here, I think I would have done way different. So confidence is key.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know, especially at such a high level where you guys won 2 national championships when you were there. Yeah, I mean, that's crazy to think about. But I'm sure, like, when you go in there, I mean, you're a big fish in a small pond in high school. Wherever you are, everybody there is great. Everyone there is an All-American. Everyone there is one of the best in the country. And then when you get there, you're all fighting for that same spot to be a starter, to get a lot of playing time. And that can really dwindle your confidence down a little bit, because, you go there, you think you're the best, then it's kind of a shock, I'm sure, a little bit. Right. I mean, you're probably expecting everyone to be good, but you're also, your whole life, you've been the best at wherever you are. So I know personally with baseball, even though I'm at a Washington College in Maryland, it's a D3 school, like, even in high school, at being like one of the best athletes at your public school or whatever, even as a D3 athlete, you go to that school and you're like, oh, well, this is a different animal. Like, how am I going to transition? And it could really hurt your confidence initially, but you just got to remember, you're there for a reason. They chose you. They recruited you. You're good enough to be there. You're good enough. So, like, you just got to go out there with confidence and play. That's a big thing.
Right. And for us, it's such a strange thing, because we've been so fortunate that, like, our expectation is to be in the Final Four, is to be in that national championship game. Like, and if you don't make it there, then you had a bad year. Like, you didn't do what it was expected, which is so crazy to think about, because some teams don't even ever make it there. So, like, when you come in and you're on this team, like, you're there for a reason, like, and no matter what your role is on that team, like, everyone is important. Everyone is doing something to better the team. So having confidence in whatever you do, no matter what your role is so important.
Yeah, that's great advice. That's awesome. Like, really, that's a big thing for me, especially. Right. I know confidence is key, whether it's lacrosse when you're playing or whether it's baseball when you're at the plate. You always need confidence, because, if you don't have confidence, it can really affect how you play. Like, honestly, when I play with confidence, if I get a hit my first at bat, I'm better the rest of the game than if I strike out my first at bat, because your confidence, whether you know it or not, subconsciously goes down a little bit. But you always have to find a way to pick up your confidence and remember why you're there, remember who you are, remember how you were playing before. Like, what I always try to do, this is always a strategy for me, is, when I'm up, even if you struck out the at bat before, and I struggle with this a lot, I'm not going to lie, you just got to remember, okay, like I've done this before. This is I've got like you can get like you're gonna get a hit again. It's just you've done it before. Remember how you play and just kind of ignore and move on.
Right. Something I've learned from one of the psychologists at Maryland was like how to talk to yourself and like how to change your thought process, because I would be like, oh, I missed a shot and I suck. Like, that's it. Game over. And right away, like, I should just be subbed out, like, because that the rest of the game is going to be terrible. And being able to miss a shot, but then be like, okay, I missed that shot. What did I do? Okay, this is what I did wrong. Next time, this is what I'm going to do. Like, just be like, just the way you talk to yourself is like the biggest thing, especially for me, because I would like pretty much self-sabotage myself, like when I was playing, because I would think about everything I did wrong and never, okay, wait, I just did that really good. Like, let me think about that and let me go do that again, you know? We're always thinking about everything we did wrong instead of what we did right. So being able to talk to yourself and change those thoughts and be like, oh, I suck, to that shot wasn't my best. Next time I'll get it. Or next time it'll be perfect. You know?
I think that's a kind of a big thing with the pandemic going on now. It's easy to look at this as, wow, you know, this is horrible and this is all bad. But if you can twist that into a positive and say, you know, this is a great opportunity to work on my mental strength and work on my physical strength and, you know, see that more as an opportunity than something that's, you know, a disappointment or a failure.
Right. I mean, go ahead.
You can go.
I don't know. I mean, especially for me, like, I didn't always get the playing time or all that, like, the way that I wanted to be that star player and all that at Maryland, even though I was so fortunate for all the top opportunities I had. Now, to me, looking at this opportunity, I'm like, okay, well, I did my 4 years in Maryland and I absolutely loved it. But now I get a chance. Maybe I go somewhere and play a year for grad school, and now I can be that player or have that career for 1 year that I wanted, and have it all, you know? So for me, it's like I'm so sad and it's so upsetting, but now I'm like, okay, I'm going to look at the positives in the situation and be able to be like, okay, I get new opportunities and I want to take advantage of them.
Are you thinking about playing in grad school? I know you just talked about that.
Yeah, I'm like throwing around a million different ideas, but I like to dream big. So I'm all for going after your biggest goals. So I'm throwing around all these ideas. So maybe, I mean, if I can, like I said before, like I got into Maryland, I used Maryland as an opportunity to further my academics. You know, I wouldn't have gotten into Maryland without it. So why not use lacrosse to get me into grad school and further my career into what I actually want to do after? So I'm thinking about it.
That's awesome. Well, we really want to thank you for coming on the show today. That was, you know, great advice and great perspective into, especially for someone, you know, at the highest level, to national champions, to kind of get a glimpse into their mind about how they're dealing with this recent pandemic and, you know, everything that goes into that. So thank you.
No,
that was really awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you guys reaching out. I loved talking on here.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, it was our pleasure. That was awesome. You had a lot of great key points, and we'll keep in touch. Maybe get you on another podcast, another episode, because that was awesome. We'd love to expand more on your ideas. Yeah,
I would love that.
All right, cool. We'll keep in touch. Bye, Nikki.
All right, stay healthy, stay safe.
You too.
Yeah, bye. All right, that was Nikki Silvestri. She's awesome. That was an awesome interview with her. We were really excited about that one. Transitioning into the next podcast series we have going on right now, we're going to have Joe Otto come on and talk a little bit about his experiences at Washington College, being an outfielder. I was in the outfield for him for the past 2 years. It was my privilege to be out there with him. We're really excited to get him on to talk about his own experiences. Hey, Joe.
How's it going? Good. Welcome to the show here.
Thank you.
All right, Joe, we're really excited to have you on. We're just going to talk a little bit, for starters, talk a little bit about your playing career up until now. You can go from high school, elementary school, college, however you want to do it. Just a little insight on how your playing career went.
Yeah, so I went to high school at Appoquinimink High School. It's in Middletown, a short ways away from Chestertown, where Washington College is. Had a great high school career. Nothing crazy. I was looking to go to a smaller D1 school originally, but but that ended up not working out. So I started looking at a lot of the D3 schools. And so I came across Washington College and found out it was 30 minutes away from home. From the first time I stepped on campus, I really felt that family atmosphere, and I knew that I'd be able to play there and have an awesome career. So I decided to pursue Washington College, and it was one of the best decisions I've made. Over the past 4 years, I've had an awesome baseball career, battled with some injuries, but didn't let that stop me from having fun and building a lot of the relationships that I cherish today. And it's definitely a weird situation we have going on now. Spent the last 4 years spending a lot of time lifting, team meetings, practice, games, and everything in between. And to have that just taken away just like that, and it's only March 25th, definitely a weird situation. So.
Yeah, for sure. I know that I'm on Joe's team, and we were in Florida when it was all going down. And I remember we were on the bus ride going down, and I remember I go to Coach, Coach, there's a lot of fake news going around, kind of joking about the coronavirus. And he was like, yeah, we don't talk about that. And I was like, oh, this might actually be a little more serious than I thought initially. And then when we were down there, I know from our experience, kind of saw everything unravel kind of before our eyes, just sitting in the hotel, and we didn't know if we were playing or not. So do you want to go over a little bit about what was going on initially when you thought about it based off of, what the news was saying, and then once you had more time to think about it and kind of let it all settle in, what your reaction was?
Yeah, so everything that you said, right on point. We're going down to Florida. Everybody's joking about it, like, oh my gosh, one of us is going to get the coronavirus. And then it just kind of unfolded, and after 3 days in Florida, it started getting a little bit more serious and a little bit more serious, and then we kind of started realizing that that might be, the end of the season. But as I look back at it, I'm kind of grateful for how it happened, because I think of a lot of the schools around the nation, it kind of hit them blindsided, whereas we were down there and we kind of knew that we were going to finish out the Florida trip, and we kind of saw it all unfold, and we kind of prepared ourselves, for what might be the end. And we knew going into that last game on Saturday, that was going to be our last game most likely. So we were able to kind of mentally prepare ourselves, and I think that was a good thing that happened. So.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people you talked about the season getting cut short, and a lot of people kind of have that ideal image of what it would be like, your last game, your last at bat, kind of what you envision that, dream ending being, and you talk about it getting cut short. But how would you say that affected you as far as, how you thought about your career? Did you have any regrets? Is there anything you wish you could have changed going back?
I look back, and it's been like a weird week. There's so much time to think. You're kind of on your own at home, and I've been thinking about it. And I've had a lot of injuries that have held me back, and that's one thing that I kind of regret. But then I have to remember that one of the mottos that I kind of live by is, control what you can control, and what you can't control, don't worry about it too much. Don't stress over it. And the injuries that I had, kind of freak injuries, and I couldn't control what happened. So that kind of prepared me kind of for what happened over the past 2 weeks. I didn't know those injuries were going to happen, but just like I didn't know the season was going to end just like that. And I think it's important to always try to find the positives in the situation. Not the ideal thing, but now we get to be home with our families and spend more time with our families than we would have. And I know for me that's important, because I'm going to be moving down to Texas here soon, and I'm not going to be around family as much. So finding that positive, being around family, spending a lot of time with them before I head out for Texas is important to me.
Yeah, that's an awesome way to live your life by. I know that we were just talking to Nikki prior to our conversation here, and she was just at practice and she heard, so she didn't even get that last game of closure. So I mean, obviously, you could look at it like, oh man, this stinks, we're not playing anymore. But that's a good point. At least you got that closure you could have had. You knew that was your last at bat. You had that kind getting pulled at the end of the game to like hug your teammates that a lot of guys or a lot of girls didn't get at the end of their careers.
Right. And I think like talking about the identity of being a sport, I mean, of being an athlete, you know, yeah, you are this athlete, and you've been an athlete all your life, and you'll probably be an athlete after this. But you know, losing that sport that you love, that you play every day, and having it kind of ripped away from you just like that, you have to kind of remember that you do have an identity outside of sports, whether you acknowledge it or not. Like, and sports kind of help you build that identity and that character, and make you a better person outside of sports. So I'm grateful for what baseball has given me in that aspect. And without baseball, you know, it kind of guided my journey to where I am today, where I might not have had the opportunities that I've had, like career-wise and schooling-wise and academics-wise. So just acknowledging that, I think, is important for me.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great point. I mean, you hit the hammer on the nail there with the self-identity issue. A lot of people, you know, after sports feel like, oh, what am I now? I was always a baseball player, and now what am I? But, you know, there's more to your life than just your sport, and you'll always be an athlete. That's never going to change. But, you know, moving on from sports is always tough for a lot of people. But, you know, I feel like, especially now with how this all happened, it could be even harder for the seniors, which is why we thought it was so important to get you guys on here, get your perspectives, hear what you guys had to say, and see what you guys are doing moving forward.
Right. Yeah, and it's definitely tough. Like, I'm in a unique situation where I kind of know what I'm doing after college, and my employer, even now, is guaranteed, you know, with all the crazy stuff that's going on, that I'm going to have a job there eventually. But for people that are in different situations that don't have that job, seniors, like, it's definitely tough, you know, because it kind of like speeds up the process, and it makes you worry a little bit more about, you know, what you're going to do after graduation and what the next move is, you know, something that kind of sports take away and help distract you from all the stresses. Now all the stresses are like very present in everyone's minds, and you have a lot more time to think about it. And that's why I think it's important to like keep a positive frame of mind with the whole situation, because all this time to think, if you get into a negative place, will definitely hurt you mentally.
Yeah, that's a good point there. One question for me that I'm going to ask everyone today on the series is, with seniors going through an experience like this, or your season getting cut short, what advice would you give to people, you know, freshmen, sophomore, juniors coming up, about not knowing when your last game is going to be? You know, what is that season going to look like? You know, how are you going to work hard? What would you do differently, or what advice could you give to people there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really like the cliche play every game like it's your last, but you know, it's really true. You want to make sure that you're giving 100% in everything that you do, and also, like, besides athletics, you got to make sure you're focusing on the other things in your life, like academics and your mental health and everything like that, so you're prepared for when that moment happens that, you know, you're not playing your sport anymore. So making sure you're focusing on other things in athletics, while at the same time giving your 100% in sports, and learning all the lessons that you need to learn from the sports, you know, toughness and persistence and teamwork and all of that stuff. Just recognizing that and help applying that to your life outside of sports.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, having a balance is key, especially, you know, you put all your eggs in one basket. When that eventually ends, which it always does for anybody, whether you're a professional athlete, college athlete, or in high school, it's going to end for everybody. So you really got to have that balance and learn what life's going to be like after sport.
Yep, for sure.
All right. Well, thanks, Joe. That was awesome. Thanks for joining us. And we're really excited to get this out for everyone to listen. And that was awesome. So thanks.
Yeah, really.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
All right, that was Joe Otto. We're going to bring his friend Chris Communis on. He's another outfielder from Washington College. I was in the outfield with Chris and Joe for the past 2 years, like I said before, and it's been great. So we're going to hear what he has to say about the season and his own experiences. So here he is. Hey, Chris.
Hey Ben.
Hey, how's it going? Welcome to the show here.
Thank you for having me.
So you're rocking the Open Mind Gym merch. Love it.
I just got it on. Just put it on for the show.
It's awesome. So we're going to talk a little bit about your playing career. So to get started, we could go from high school to college, or if you want to go on down to your school, kind of just how you got to where you are today as a baseball player.
Yeah, so I grew up in Hocassin, Delaware, North Delaware, and I played, just like everybody else. I played several sports growing up. Soccer was my first when I was like 4 because I wasn't allowed to play baseball first until I was 5, and then just kind of just fell in love with baseball ever since. Played since I was 5 years old. I did the normal, like Little League, and then going to travel ball and all of that. Everyone knows about that. I bet you did too. I've kind of just gone from team to team, from Piedmont to Delaware Sabres, and then kind of going into high school, and then obviously at Washington College. That's kind of been my path.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's great. That's kind of how everyone goes through baseball unless you picked it up a little later. You start from T-ball, Little League, into, middle school, high school, college, and whatnot. You want to give a little bit of detail of your playing career at Washington College?
Yeah, so at Washington College, I came in kind of as a two-way. Honestly, I was a relief pitcher and a center fielder coming in. Coach Reynolds brought me in. He's currently the coach at UMass. He was a huge help. He was a big recruiter, him and Scott Renaro. I came in right away, basically in the fall, had a really good fall, and was basically the starting center fielder. From there on, from freshman year, sophomore year, struggled a lot in the beginning, but kind of found my way sophomore year, and kind of just, got my roles based on them in recent years.
Yeah, so we talk a little bit about this pandemic that's been going on and how that's been affecting people. I know, Ben and Joe talked about you guys being down in Florida, and if you want to touch a little bit about, your initial reaction when you heard the news, what went through your head, kind of what you were thinking at that time.
Yeah, so I bet Joe probably said this too, but we were kind of joking on the bus ride down that we're like, oh my gosh, like this actually cancels our season, like this would be ridiculous. And then it kind of became more reality. As the days progressed, and we're seeing other colleges cancel. And the last day, me and Ben would be talking every single day. We're like, this is actually going to happen. Like, this is crazy. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. We were talking about that. Like every day in the hotel, we kind of just kept on hearing more and more news. It started with, some schools canceling their classes, and then Amherst baseball was the first one to cancel for D3 for their season, and they got a lot of backlash initially. Everyone was like, "Oh, what are you doing? You're canceling the season. That's harsh right now. That's kind of irrational to be doing that. Shouldn't you think it through a little more?" And then everyone else kind of took precedent after that, and people started canceling. The Ivy started canceling. Nikki was on a few minutes before Joe, and she was talking about the Ivies and Patriot League canceling, and they were still practicing. And it was unfortunate for her because, she didn't have her final game. They canceled that practice. And even with Chris, it seems like they didn't really know. They kind of just canceled their season too, and they left. They didn't even finish out their Florida trip. So if you want to go over the Florida trip, kind of the end, I know that you had a little bit of closure at the end of the season, what that final game meant to you, and kind of go from there and how it's going to impact you moving forward.
Yeah, from Wednesday, Thursday on, we were kind of like playing every single game like it was the last one. We were hearing kind of rumbling from around, the athletic department. Every game kind of felt weird. It felt like, are we going to play tomorrow? Are they going to let us play tomorrow? Is Coach Beddick going to let us continue the trip? So that's kind of how we approached every single game. That night game, probably on Thursday, was definitely the weirdest one. But the Saturday, the last game that we had, was definitely felt more like a senior game than anything, which was, we appreciated that as seniors,
Yeah, for sure. I know that you guys had your closure a little bit at the end, but for a lot of athletes around the country, they didn't get that closure. The people have the other year of eligibility, which is a good thing that they gave to athletes, but not everyone's going to use that eligibility. So it is unfortunate how it happened, and it's just kind of a crappy situation, pardon my language, but it really is. We were sitting there, and nobody knew when it was going to be your last game. So, it was tough for everybody. But having that final closure is big.
Yeah, I mean, we would walk into the lobby, me, Joe, Max, Tommy, like we'd walk in the lobby and you and Max would look at us like this could be it. And it sucked, pardon my language. But every single time it was like, this is it. It might be it. And if it is, like, no regrets,
Yeah, exactly.
You want to talk a little bit about what your plans are going forward? If you were thinking about grad school, maybe that extra year of eligibility or career plans going forward?
Yeah, I don't think I'll be using my year of eligibility. I currently have something in place to do a job in marketing in Philadelphia. I'm still looking at other places, moving forward, because who knows if people are going to hire right now. That's kind of, I don't know if Joe talked about that, but it's in a weird limbo stage right now where no one's really hiring. They're kind of doing that big freeze. So I'm just kind of preparing for the worst right now. Yeah, that's kind of how I'm moving forward.
Which has got to be a tough change of plans from how you envision the semester into the work life to go, like from graduation on, but also like the end of the semester. I know there was a lot still planned and a lot still we had to do. And, how has that changed from when you heard the initial news? I know you talked about, wow, this could actually happen, to now when you're processing it and what's going on. How has your outlook kind of changed? Because I know Joe talked a lot about thinking about like the positives about it, but that is tough in this time, and we all have to be like vulnerable and be able to talk about our own feelings during this time.
Yeah, I mean, you schedule your semester around your baseball season, kind of what classes you want to take to have like in your repertoire for career, and now having to take those classes online, not really at a regular kind of time schedule. Like I really like time structure, schedule, and that's kind of been the complete opposite in this whole mess. So yeah, it's definitely been tough, but yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing, from people I've talked to at Towson about dealing with this whole thing is a lot of people talk about not having a routine or, not having that set schedule of going to practice, working out and all that stuff. What's something that, you've been doing to cope with it or occupy your time while you're at home or get into a set routine? Is there anything that you've been doing to try to balance out what you were doing at school?
Yeah, I've been helping around the house, helping my parents out. It's weird. I bet you probably do this at the same time. I look at the clock a lot of the times and I'm like, all right, it's 3:25. We should be in whatever the second inning of the game right now. Like,
me and Max always talk about that. I go to him. I'm like, wow, in a few days we should be playing Swarthmore at Swarthmore right now, but we can't. So
you're like, I should be doing this. I should be practiced. I should be in class right now. But now there's no schedule. It's kind of, we're all trying to figure this out together, I guess.
Yeah, I use the analogy when I'm home. I'm like, wow, it feels like I'm in high school again, but it's like summer work and a mix of a summer work and a snow day where you're stuck at home and like you're doing summer work, but you can't leave and you're kind of still doing school work for high school. It's weird coming back home, and it's like you have all this independence in college and you're back home and it's great to be with your family. It's awesome. And I've loved spending time with them, but at the same time, it's just like a whole different experience.
Yep.
So one question I've kind of been asking everyone today is, with all this happening and your season getting cut short like all of ours, but what advice would you give to freshmen, sophomore, juniors coming up about not knowing when your last game is going to be, playing every game like it's your last? What advice would you give to those people listening?
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably like, I don't know if this has been used, but the whole play every game like it's your last, like it's a weird analogy to use, but you kind of have to use it because you never know if it's going to be. We were expecting to play 40 games a season. Instead, we played 15. You don't think about those things when you're practicing in Feb 1, like going into like the beginning of the season. You don't think like, all right, I'm only going to play this amount of games. So I guess the advice I can give is just, leave everything on the field. Don't have any regrets, and really just enjoy your time with your teammates because, you could be sitting at home like I am right now, and you'd rather be, playing ball right now with Ben and Max and all those guys. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a great point. Playing every game like it's your last because, not only with the coronavirus pandemic, but if you look at sports in general and playing every game like it's your last, Joe mentioned his injuries over the years. So you really don't know when it's going to be your last game. So you really have to cherish those moments, play every game really hard, just leave it all out there with your teammates. And you remember, like, I also say, remember, you're bigger than your sport. It's bigger than sports. We talk about self-identity in sport and how, I know for your years probably growing up, people ask you, oh, what's your name? Who are you? Oh, I'm Chris Communis. I'm a baseball player. Yep. You kind of associate with your sport as your identity. But now more than ever, we kind of need to realize to shy away from that and have a balance and realize, okay, well, like sports have given me a lot and I'm really grateful for my time playing, but it's also like I'm bigger than that. I need to have other things that I can go to past sports because, you know, whether you're a high school athlete, college athlete, pro athlete, it ends for everyone at some point. Mm-hmm. So you have to, even though it's great to say I'm a baseball player, it's always important to associate with other things as well.
Yep.
Yeah, one thing I always thought was, you know, I heard people say sports build your identity, but they don't make up your identity. And that's something that's always kind of stuck with me. And like you said, everyone's career comes to an end at some point, and it's about, you know, what are you going to do after? What purpose do you have that's outside of sport that you can really tie around and find, you know, a love for?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something that, you know, Coach Beddick talked about a lot was like how you act in public, how you act around other people. And, you know, it's not you're that person, the baseball player, or that person from the team. So it kind of now moving on from that, it's kind of a, you know, it's a realization. It kind of hits you now.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you know, that was awesome, Chris. Thanks for coming on. You had a lot of really insightful talking points, and that was awesome. We're excited to get it out.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
Thanks. Yeah.
All right, see you, Chris. All right, so that was Chris Kremidas from Washington College.
Yeah, really grateful for those 4 seniors who came on to share their experiences and give us a little insight to how they're coping with it and how they're dealing with this recent pandemic, and we're really grateful for them coming on.
Yeah, I hope for those college athletes listening that they took a lot from what they were saying about, you know, playing every game like it's your last, self-identity, what it was like for them, and kind of just feeling like you're not alone in this whole situation. You know, everybody's going through it. It's kind of an adjustment for everyone, but we have to make the most of it.
Yeah, I mean, that was awesome stuff they gave. And, you know, one of the big things I took away was just really don't take anything for granted. You never know when something's going to happen, whether that be injury, you know, something, you know, really unexpected like this. But, you know, like you said, just treat everything like it's your last and give it your all in everything you do. And in the end of the day, that's all you can control. And that's all that's important.
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, moving forward, this podcast was not a planned one. We kind of decided we were going to do this a couple of days ago once we realized, you know, everything that was going on with the coronavirus. We felt like we owed the listeners this podcast because it is a big deal and it is a big issue going on right now. So moving forward, we're going to go with our planned 3rd podcast. It's going to be Ernie Duncan. He's going to come on Sunday to talk about, you know, March Madness a little bit, the cancellation of the season. And, you know, he graduated a year ago, but he still is involved with Vermont a lot. His brothers play on the basketball team. He was a star basketball player there. He came out with his story around March Madness last year. So it's going to be interesting a year later to see and to talk more about to him to see how he's doing now, how his story's changed a little bit, if it's changed at all, and like to talk a little bit more on his story and expand.
Yeah, super excited for that one. I think people are going to take a lot out of that and just really looking forward to that.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, guys.